Hello, and thank you for viewing our NYU Veterans Day panel. I'm Kareem Paschal and a junior at the School of Professional Studies majoring in Marketing and Data Analytics, and I'm currently serving as the president of the Student Veterans Association at New York University. My military background is I was an Army veteran. I served 20 years in the Army as a military police officer and transitioned out in 2018. And Veterans Day is marching and Veterans Day parade. I believe in esprit de corps and camaraderie. That's very big for me. And I also believe in the saying that goes in the veterans community is to pay it forward. So I believe everyone should always pay their experiences forward. In honor of all those who in our community who served, we want to take some time to talk about the veteran and military connected community at NYU with a few amazing people. I'll let them introduce themselves. First, we have Alum McFarlane.
Thank you, Kareem. It's such a pleasure to be here. You know, Dr. King said that anyone can be great because anyone can serve, and I'm thinking a lot about that in terms of the introduction. So happy to commemorate Veterans Day with all of you. My name is Alum McFarlane. I am the Assistant Vice President for Outreach and Engagement here at NYU. I'm also a proud alum. I bleed violet. I am a graduate of the School of Professional Studies as well as the Steinhardt School of Education, Culture, and Human Development. And I served in the United States Air Force for 4 years. I've been at NYU for 37 years now, and it has been a joy and a privilege to work here at the institution. But more importantly, I have relied on my military experience as the foundation for my even guiding principles, and not only my profession, but how I actually work with students as well as colleagues. And the typical way that I celebrate Veterans Day is I march with all of my fellow veterans, all of you that are here today. We march, we can't march this year, but we've been doing this for the last couple of years. And it has been a fantastic experience, not only because I'm marching with our veterans, but we see how the community does love and support veterans here.
Thank you for being here, Alan. Next up, we have Grant.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Kareem. My name is Grant Fox. I am an alum of the School of Professional Studies, where I received a graduate degree in 2011 from the Center of Global Affairs. I'm also currently a staff member at NYU. I work at the Tandon School of Engineering, where I run an entrepreneurship program geared towards veteran entrepreneurs. We have a singular focus. Our mission is to empower the veteran entrepreneur. My military background, I spent almost 8 years in active duty with the US Navy. And it's something that continues to be a part of my life, and an experience that I appreciate more the further away I'm from it. I've been at NYU as a student first, starting in 2009. And ever since then have been connected to the university in some shape or form. I spent 2 years as a student, and then as an alum, I volunteered, and I still do volunteer with the university. For example, I'm the co-lead of the Veteran Alumni Network. So we're the alumni affinity group geared towards NYU veterans that have graduated. And we're tens of thousands in strength. So please join our ranks. I am not just the director of the VFL, the Veterans Future Lab, but also I am a faculty member where I teach courses pertaining to my background, my civilian background, in things like energy, entrepreneurship, sustainability, finance, and investments. How do I celebrate Veterans Day? So Veterans Day is a moment of reflection for me, and it's a moment of austerity. I think back to my military experience and the people I've met and the experiences we had there. And also it's a time for reverence. I, like Alan mentioned, try to participate in the many festivities that happen normally outside of a global pandemic, such as parades and just gatherings. And it's always good to meet fellow veterans and know that this moment is for us. And there's a bond strengthening moment or opportunity there.
Thank you for being here, Grant. Next up, we have Christin.
Hi everyone, my name is Christin St. John. I am a first year graduate student at the Tisch School of Arts. I am studying to be a director for film and television, and I am class of 2023. So I am a Marine Corps veteran, and I just got out of the Marine Corps. So I served 4 years as a communication strategy and operations officer, and I just got out in August 2020, and I started school at September 2020. So I'm pretty new as an NYU student, and this is my first official year as a veteran. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, Kristen. Now we just have a few questions, but we'd love to hear about all your experiences and your hopes for the veteran and military community at NYU. Okay, first question. What do you know about the history of veterans at NYU and how they've contributed to the community at NYU?
Thanks for that question, Kareem. The reason why history is so important to me is that the history of the military at NYU is directly connected to creating a sense of belonging. As you know, that with inclusion, diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging is a huge word. So there's history and there's belonging, and then there's the story. And the name that comes up now for me with that question, I think about Captain Roscoe Brown. Captain Roscoe Brown was a Tuskegee Airman fighter pilot. He's also a graduate of NYU. And what's important about Captain Roscoe Brown, about the contributions that veterans make to the school and the institution, is that he was the first director of the Institute of African American Affairs here at NYU, which was actually established in 1969. So here's a clear example of how veterans, once they leave the military, how they contribute to society. The Institute of African American Affairs is thriving even today under the leadership of Dr. Deb Willis. But history and belonging is a huge part of why I think about the history. And there's so much to share and so much to talk about, but I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I'll chime in. I think the first resource I always go to when I want to learn anything about NYU, and particularly veterans and their involvement with NYU, is sitting right here with us, Alum McFarlane. Alan, in fact, turned me on to the archives at the NYU Bopes Library on the second floor. And I met the archivist for the university, Janet Bund, not too long ago. And we had a very great conversation. They have so many materials and documents, not just like paperwork, but also like physical things in their archives related not just to our community, but the university at whole. So I highly recommend you check that out when you have a chance. The NYU archives on the second floor at Bopes Library. But one thing I've learned, and especially Alan talks to us about some of these prominent veterans that are part of our NYU family, like Mr. Roscoe Brown. But I also learned from the archives and just through other research, we talk a lot about, when we think about veterans, the military aspect of our journey, right? And of course, that's important and something that should be remembered, and it's a tradition that we should carry forward. But being a veteran, there's the post-military experience, right? And at NYU, there were many veterans that served, if you will, post-military experience in a way that I think is consistent with the values that they have. I think back particularly to the Vietnam War era. NYU was a pivotal meeting ground for a lot of the protests and the discussions around the validity of the war. And a lot of the NYU military veterans were a big part of that. Protests that were going on in Washington Square were in fact led many times by NYU students that were military veterans. So that's something I'm proud of, regardless if I or you agree with the politics or anything. I do think the act of service of continuing to serve after our military experience is important. It's a tradition at NYU for military veterans that are students here, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of being part of that.
You know, and with history, there's also the future as well. So I also serve Grant, and I also serve on the Veterans Working Group. And the Veterans Working Group at NYU is designed to listen to voices of our newest members of the community, particularly voices like Christin and other veterans, to tell us, to share with us what they're experiencing now. So I certainly want to make sure that there's a balance between the history and the present as well as the future. I think there's a great word that Grant reminds me of with his work in terms of what he's doing, and the word innovation. I think that's a word that we should be using in our conversations as we are discussing our community as veterans, because there's clearly lots of innovation, not to mention creativity and all the things that go along with that. I personally think that, you know, because of my military background, that has given me, I keep saying this again, but I really believe that my experience has really helped me in my profession today.
Awesome. Thank you, Grant and Alan, for providing that great piece of history. Second question, tell us a little bit about your journey transitioning out of the military and into civilian life or into NYU. Anyone can answer.
Well, I know that my journey is pretty new still. I'm really grateful for my Marine Corps experience, because I think the Marine Corps led me to what I wanted to do, to be a director in film. So while I was in the Marine Corps, we did a lot of projects with film and photography. So then, like, it kind of set me up for success in film school. So I applied while I was in, and it was such a quick turnaround. So it's pretty new and pretty fresh, but honestly, it's really helped me kind of get into the motion of school. So I'm still used to getting up early. I'm still used, well, or not that early, but it was it's a little tricky getting out and starting. It's kind of scary, honestly, and it doesn't feel really good. It's uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. But my military experience has really helped me becoming successful in academia. So I'm really grateful for it. And it's uncomfortable, but you can walk through it. I mean, because that's just what we're used to doing, is walking through that uncomfortability and being successful.
I definitely agree with the uncomfortableness. Now, it's been eons since I get out, and I still have that feeling, that anxiety. I remember signing the DD-214 document, and there is no onboarding for civilian life. There's no class for that. Do you notice that they just push us out the door? Thank you. They spend so much energy trying to keep us in that there's no offboarding. And so we're kind of like on our own. I remember riding on the subway and I was grinning. And I was grinning because it was 9 o'clock and it's like half the day's gone. And people are what are these people upset about? You get to go to work at 9 o'clock? The day is over. You get a day off. So transition is a huge word. And I think in many ways, what we can do as veterans is to help educate the community about that transition. We have, those challenges are there. I mean, there's not a lot of support that we get, and just being fair, I don't know where we are now. Grant and Kareem, you probably have a different idea of what the transition is, but I know that, yeah, that feeling of, whoa, I was disoriented. And so in terms of institutions, I just hope that we can, in terms of voices, we need to do more about that transition, about how to support veterans during that transition. And I still remember that from all those years ago. And I was in during the Carter administration, so I'll just stop right there.
Yeah, that's interesting, Alan, because I separated in 2003, which now seems like a eon ago, but and my experience with separating from the military is similar to what you just said. They just kind of close the door on you. And based on conversations I've had with folks that have recently separated, it hasn't evolved that much. And that's something at my program, the Veterans Future Lab, we're looking at. We're trying to map out the veterans' journey, and transition we've identified as a huge point in which, there's a gap and also a need to connect with the veterans at that point. In fact, before that point, right? Before they become veterans and no longer active duty members. But more about my personal experience with separating. I remember that I'd already decided that I was going back to school. And as soon as I was officially done, I just wanted to close the book on that chapter of my life. And that's what I did. And it took me a while to realize that that wasn't necessarily the right move. Using the book metaphor again, like it probably would have been better for me to just earmark the page and keep the book open, if you will. Because at that moment and for the first few years of my new civilian life, I didn't want to do anything military, including like just ignoring all the available opportunities for veterans, and just really what I'm trying to get at is there's strength in numbers. Building a community is important, and whether we like it or not, we are veterans and we are part of a veteran community. And so tapping into that community, once I finally did that in earnest, it paid dividends, and it continues to do so. And so now I'm at a point where I'm trying to pay that forward. One way to do that is to talk to folks that just separate from the military and say, hey, don't do what I did. Lean into it, go into it, and embrace the veteran community, because it is a large and it's a great community. We're tight knit, we support each other, and that could lead to so many opportunities, and just the support and the knowledge of knowing that there's people that have similar shared experiences that you had is reassuring, and it could get you through a lot of challenging times. So I highly encourage any veterans out there to not run away from the community that you're officially a part of.
Grant, I had that same sentiment, and I definitely want to take my hat off to Christin and Kareem, because I agree with you, Grant. I was the same way. And the fact that Christin and Kareem have embraced connecting with the community, that is the way to go. That is the future. I totally agree with you on that, Grant.
Definitely.
Thank you, everyone, for those interesting perspectives. I'd just like to chime in about really briefly about my transition out of the Army into the civilian world. And for me, it was very seamless. It was a very seamless, easy process. And I understand everyone's process is not going to be the same, because we all have our individual reasons why we leave the military. And so that's why I like to pay it forward, because I think everyone could have a seamless process. But the biggest thing for me was I had a great mentor exiting the military who sat me down and told me, this is what you need to do to set yourself up for success. I took this person's knowledge, I took their information they provided, and I did everything to the T. And personally, I think it worked out for me to where I made sure I was set up for success transitioning out from the military. And it also helped that I knew what I wanted to do, which I think is a key component into that, where you really have to know what you want to do on the outside world. But again, thank you, everyone. Okay, now I have a follow-up question. What was your initial view of veterans at NYU, and how has that changed over time?
I remember first coming to NYU as a student, a decade ago, and to where it is today in 2020 with the veterans at NYU. There's definitely been a lot of progress. I think the community has become more people are engaged with it, and there's more communication. So that's definitely one of the biggest changes. And that's only going to help serve us. And as using Kareem's philosophy of paying it forward, I think the more of us that do pay that forward, the better things that are going to come as a result of that. And so another thing is that the services that are available for veteran students that were available in my heyday as a student are different. I think they're better, perhaps more comprehensive. And that's great. That's something that should be there for you guys. I remember, the benefits from the VA, the Veterans Affairs, that were available to me when I went through school were amazing when I took advantage of them. And I thought, wow, this is great. I could basically subsidize most of the tuition to going to one of the top universities and the fees that go alongside that, with the benefits from the VA and also New York State. But I know, like, pretty much as soon as I graduated, those benefits started shifting and became a little bit more. So I'm actually, like, I'm surprised that more people don't take advantage of that, across the country. Like, if you're a veteran, you should be using those benefits. I mean, it's a great opportunity to go to school, get an education, and broaden your horizons. And that's one of the big things I got out of my time at NYU, is just like really opening up my perspective to so many things that I wasn't exposed to before. And it set me on a different trajectory that I was on prior to becoming a student and graduating from NYU.
My initial view of veterans at NYU, I think it's been really good. I know that veterans in higher academia is kind of non-existent, so I know that the veteran community at NYU is small, but I think they're really strong. When I was applying to NYU, I sent a random email to PT. He responded to me, and that really meant a lot. That somebody was there and they responded. And then getting here during COVID and the world feels like it's crumbling, veterans are still there. So, like, me going to grad school, I've never been to grad school before. I don't really know what I'm doing. I send out a text, they respond to me, or I reach out, I call, even though we're small, they're there for each other, and which I think is really, it really leaves a really good impression on me. It means a lot to just kind of have that community, have somebody that's there. There's one other veteran in the film program, and he reached out to me as soon as I got accepted, and that was awesome, just to have someone to talk to. And then the director of the film program, she linked me up with one or two other veterans that, it's small, but it's tight. So it's cool to be a part of it.
That's awesome. Grant talked about the Vietnam War, and there was a period where when folks separated from the military, that when they returned home, they weren't even wearing their uniform because of all of the protests, and even Dr. King was protesting against the war. And so there was definitely a period where, there was a low morale with our military veterans. And I'm glad to say that has changed because of the continued contributions of our veterans. And that even at NYU, I've seen a radical shift in terms of how working with veterans is also about, holding true to our values of inclusion. And so it's an imperative that we do open up our doors to our veterans. And I've seen that huge change since I've been here, with all different offices, with the VFL, with the Military Assisted Community Center, with the Veterans Working Group, and also the mentors. Someone had mentioned mentors. There's definitely some behind the scenes veterans who are working with other veterans once they reveal themselves, working one-on-one. I need to lift up two things. First of all, I want to thank Grant for his leadership for the Veterans Alumni Association, but I also want to lift up the name of Pete Hamill. Pete Hamill was a veteran journalist, U.S. Navy, and he's also one of the champions of establishing the Veterans Alumni Association and being part of those conversations early on. So there is definitely a resurgence of what was and what is, and also I think a lot of this has to do with the launch of the Yellow Ribbon Program, which actually sort of added the plus to the GI Bill. So with this initial view and where we are now, I think the biggest concern I have is what's going to happen the next 10, 20, 25 years. We have we have definitely got to be thinking about what we want as veterans for the next 10, 20, 25 years. We can't go back to how we all know that history sometimes repeats itself. We don't want to go back to the point where, our veterans are sort of in many ways looked upon as folks who are not a part of the community, not to mention the diversity that we all have in our experiences, the things that we've done. So the initial view was coming from when I was in the military. Yeah, there was definitely the malaise coming from off of the Vietnam War, and then we have our definitely different conflicts around the world. There's clearly a change for the better here at NYU, but we have a long way to go in terms of doing more, and definitely where we go is going to definitely be key to what the Kareems and the Christins and the Grant Foxes say about where we should be in the future.
Thank you, everyone. Next question. How do we bring more awareness to the student, staff, faculty, veteran experience to the overall NYU community?
I think just having our presence in all different areas is probably the most important, because our presence changed things. I'm the only veteran in my class, even though it's a small class, still the only one, and I'm bringing a perspective to my classmates that they've never even thought about. And I think they're really welcoming, and they're really receptive to it. But if I wasn't there, they wouldn't know any different. So I think just kind of holding that space in all different areas of the school and speaking out about our experience, and being vocal about the transition, or just our past, or anything. I think that's like most important.
I totally agree there, Kristen, and I also think there should be. I'm looking at Grant. Grant, we need a hackathon on this topic. There should be a hackathon on just this topic, and see, what our veteran community and students think of, to really tap into that brain power about what can we create or think about it in terms of the awareness. The other thing about that sense of belonging is that, yes, the community overall knows very little about us. And we definitely need to help them understand that there is a rich history, and that although we are small, and Kristen, I love the way you put that we are here and we are strong. Maybe that might be the slogan right now. Maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody write that down. We are small, but we are strong. I'm telling you. Yeah. And so the history is also about, for the rest of the community, it's to educate the community about the fact that we're here, the fact that they need to know. We're talking about how that adds value, and that when you do see a veteran in the classroom, and this is the only veteran that you have, know that they are coming with a strong history of connecting, in terms of the veteran community, and I also don't want to leave out the families and the support network of veterans, and the spouses and the children who are actually attending NYU as well. So those are two things that jump out at me about the awareness. How do we bring innovation to that? We got the folks here, and how can we actually use this to educate the community at large? We shouldn't be the only ones talking about, the veteran connected community. Some of that history has been erased by the time. And when you think about what's happening with go back to the Vietnam War between 1977 and 1981, the history actually suppressed, the ability to even talk about these things in these spaces and places. We cannot allow, the military history of the voices to be silenced by controversy or disagreements or differences of opinion. Clearly, we need to keep working towards, the importance of inclusion that we have with the.
Definitely. I wrote down the hackathon idea, Alan. We're gonna work on that. I'm looking forward to to share notes with you on that. So I do think there's an awareness issue in that by default, you can usually spot a veteran in a classroom, let's say. One, obviously they're older, but also they tend to be the quiet person, the reserved person in the back. And that's not necessarily that they are a reserved or quiet person. It's just we've been trained to kind of be like that in these types of situations. And ultimately that doesn't serve us in the sense that, like, if people don't know we exist, then how can they understand us better and also like want to know more about us? So, the organizations like the ones I'm involved with and, collectively the ones we're involved with on this panel are a great way to just, it's a conduit towards making not just more awareness within our community, in other words, veterans knowing each other that are part of NYU, but also it's a great way to be external. The more things we do, the more that the folks at NYU broadcast that type of stuff. It's very common for veteran organizations to do acts of service, and that's always something that people want to talk about. So we're going to get a lot of face time on the media channels just by default. And I also think people want to support veterans. We're one of the last bastions of nonpartisan issues in the United States for the time being. I hope it stays that way. But that's a great thing because we have, total support in that sense, and opportunities arise from that. So I do think we collectively need to work together on finding ways to communicate better and increase the awareness, not just within the veteran community at NYU, but outside of it.
Hey, Grant, we've been sending in mail-in ballots since the Civil War, and that is a fact.
Indeed. That's right. Military service members have always been doing absentee ballots. Yeah, this isn't new for us.
The important thing to also to remember about awareness is the mental health and wellness of our veterans coming from different experiences. It's clear that we all know and heard of the statistics as relates to suicides. And let's just be frank, it is a huge issue and a matter that we certainly don't want to lose sight of. So in that regard, there also that the awareness not only of the community in terms of the needs of the veterans, but also that those services are actually supported. And the NYU Center has many services. There are folks here at the Student Health Center that are dedicated to this. I mean, even on your ID cards at NYU, we have the Wellness Exchange. Also talking about the importance of the mental health and wellness. And as Grant said, we have a tendency to be quiet and sit in the back of the room and assess and sort of scan the environment. And sometimes we hold things in for too long before we decide that we want to or need to do something about it because we've been taught to toe the line, to do what we can do, to be a part of the team, to not be the weakest link in the chain. And I think there's a huge desire to stay as strong as you possibly can in the face of all the issues that you're combating. And that is something that we have to break in terms of supporting our veterans. So just lifting up the awareness of not only health and wellness as relates to support services to our veterans, but also how the community needs to be aware of the fact that that is one of the things that they need to know as well.
Last question. How should our community use our military experience and our NYU experience to propel us into careers as we transition out of the university?
Well, I think for me, the Marine Corps taught me teamwork, camaraderie, just when it's like a family. And I think that's been ingrained in me for my last 4 years, even with my family before that. But the Marine Corps really showed me a different level of that. And I think I bring that into school, and I think I'll bring that into my career after. So I think military people or military folks or just veterans in general We know how to work together. We know how to be a team. And you bring that into a space and it changes the whole environment. It changes everything. Whether I'm leading or I'm following, we can, that objective, we can get it done in a really good way. Like on set, like if I'm running a set, we're a team. It's not just me. It's not just, we're a team. We got to get through this. And I think that type of mentality, it's just really valuable, and it helps. It just echoes, and it just grows into a better environment. So whether we stay in school and just in the classroom, and then move on later for a job, we bring that mentality, and it just overall like just makes it better. I think that's veterans bring that type of like, hey, I got your back, we're in this together kind of thing. No matter what, we're gonna get it done, and it's a really beautiful thing. So I think that would be one of the things that I would say veterans bring to the table.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. We have the training and the experiences, that give us certain advantages. Look, I'm a strong believer that veterans make great entrepreneurs, but also great leaders, right? And an NYU veteran, it just enhances that fact, and it really gives the NYU veteran a ridiculously unfair advantage, and we should leverage that, right? I know that in the field that I was working in prior to working at NYU, and post my military time, that there's a lot of veterans out there that are in leadership positions in all kinds of industries, and they seek out and they want to help fellow veterans. So if they identify that you're a veteran, they'll go out of their way. I mean, that's just what we do for each other. A lot of times sight unseen, right? Just knowing that you're a veteran, like I'm going to help you to some extent. If you're a veteran that I could help like even more for whatever reason, because your career interests align with my background, like I will go out of my way to help you. And I know I'm not the only one. So that's something that the combination of the NYU education and learning experience, and the people that you meet here that come from all over the world are like just really just amazing talents and high caliber classmates. That aspect, but also, the other experience that we bring to the table of our military training and our military experiences, that combination, that's dangerous. Like, watch out, world. NYU veteran is well equipped to be successful out in the world. And if you're somebody that's in a position to help somebody like that, like, please do so. It's a win-win all the way around.
I love what you both said. When a veteran calls me, I answer. No questions asked. And I'll tell you something else you're right about. So yes, I bleed violet too. And I can sing the NYU alma mater. And I would challenge any student to be able to do that. I'll sing it right now if it would challenge me to tell you. So you're right about that combination,
I'm
Grant.
tempted.
You're right. You're right about the combination of our military experience, and then we align it with the love for our institution in terms of how it propels us. We are unstoppable. Trust me. And I'll tell you this other thing too. I'm gonna sing this song right now. Oh, stately square that lies before us, these stony portals straight and strong, the birthplace of our alma mater, will ever praise and splendid song. The archway ever stands triumphant, protecting all we seek to do. To thee for our inspiration, oh, honored NYU. So we get all the veterans together. We need to sing that song. That's what we need to be doing. That's right. Grant, you are so right. Now, I'll say this last thing about career development. Two things. Make sure you join the NYU Violet Network, because Grant, you're right. Although we sit in the back of the room and we kind of scan, there's no reason that you can't tell me that the reason why he came to New York is not to do some networking. So we know that already. So get on the Violet Network. Definitely meet with a career counselor because employers love veterans. I spent 15 years in career development. I know what I'm talking about. Employers love veterans because you bring a level of experience and maturity and outlook that enables you to hit the ground running. And they are all about that when you think about the outcomes and the results that they want. So it's important that part of your networking strategy is to align yourself with a career coach in the Wasserman Center. Number one, hands down. There are so many veterans who actually recruited NYU. So make yourself known to the community overall. Take advantage of all the networking. And the other thing about veterans, which I think is important to remember, is that we have this interesting way of evaluating things. You know, we're thinking about, when we look at an employer or an organization, we are thinking a lot about what Christin said. Is this a family? Are they connected? Are they supporting each other? Is there a mentor? In the back of my mind, I'm thinking about, is this the right place to meet, that I'm going to give my 100% that I've done with my service? Are they worthy of that? So, Greg and Christin, you hit the ball in the head as far as I'm concerned. Now, can you sing that song? Go ahead, Christin.
That was
How's it go again?
I just had to Google it. I have the lyrics here if we all want to sing it in unison. But that's interesting that Alan saying that, because when I look around at other universities, and I get it, it's like it's more of a sports thing. But you know, you look around at other universities, and they're big on school pride and school songs, and so that was actually pretty nice listening to Alan sing that too. Like,
let me tell you something. We cannot allow all these other institutions to be busting out in song. We don't know ours. We ain't gonna let that happen.
Right? No,
Do not let them do that, because they will.
No, I'm gonna listen to it.
I'm with you there. I like it.
Okay.
Plus, you sang it on key, Alan.
Yeah, no, that was on key.
I was lucky. It's from practice.
I really want to thank all of our panelists for spending time with us today. I also want to thank the Center for Student Life, the Student and Veterans Association at NYU, the NYU Tandon Veterans Future Lab, Veterans Alumni Network, Veterans Working Group, and the Division of Student Affairs for their support in creating this session. If you're looking to get connected to any of the resources, please email veterans@nyu.edu. Thank you for your service and have a happy Veterans Day.
The origin of Veterans Day came from the end of World War I, and the Armistice Day was November 11th, which was the moment when they struck peace after World War I. So that was a moment of happiness and joy, and so it's evolved, obviously, replaced the name, but that's the origin, and so I think of that